They told us that if we became disciplined enough, successful enough, useful enough, we'd finally feel whole. So we became the ones who carry a lot, the builders, the providers, the protectors. But even strong people need somewhere to put things down. Welcome to Granite and Grace, a weekly reset for the people who carry a lot. So wherever you're listening from, take a breath. There's nothing to prove here, nothing to perform here, just a moment to remember we were never meant to carry life alone. Welcome home. After our first episode, some people started asking the question, what does Granite and Grace actually mean? And honestly, I think that question matters because these two words hold the entire heart of this space, not just the podcast, but the journey we're on together. Granite and grace, strength and softness, survival and surrender, resilience and rest. Most of us learn one long before we learn the other, and that imbalance changes the way we move through life. So today, I want us to slow down long enough to understand why we need both, not just emotionally, but spiritually too. Because I truly believe many of us were taught how to survive before we were ever taught how to rest in God. Let's begin with granite. Granite is survival. Granite is the part of us that learn how to keep going. The grit, the discipline, the resilience, the ability to endure. Granite is the reason many of us are still here. It's the oldest child learning responsibility too early, the single mother figuring things out with no blueprint, the entrepreneur carrying pressure nobody sees, the caregiver who keeps showing up even when they're exhausted, the leader who absorbs stress so everyone else can breathe easier. And for many of us, granite became sacred because it protected us. Some of us survived difficult homes because of granite. Some of us survived heartbreak because of granite. Some of us survived grief, rejection, poverty, betrayal, loneliness, because granite taught us how to endure. And I want to say something clearly today. There is no shame in your granite. God gave many of us the strength we needed to survive seasons that should have broken us. And we honor that. But here's where things get complicated. What protects us in survival does not always know how to love us in peace. And eventually, some of us become so identified with strength that we forgot how to exist without struggle. For a lot of us, strength stopped being a tool and became who we are. People started describing us in the same way. She's strong. They always handle it. Oh, they're good. And over time, we started believing that too. We became uncomfortable receiving help, uncomfortable resting, uncomfortable needing support. Because somewhere deep down, many of us connected our worth to usefulness. If we're helping, we mattered. If we're producing, we mattered. If we're carrying everyone else, we mattered. But what happens when the strong one gets tired? What happens when the helper needs help? What happens when the provider needs support? And what happens when the person everyone depends on needs somewhere to fall apart? You know what I noticed? A lot of us don't even realize we're exhausted until our body forces us to pay attention. Because when survival mode becomes normal, rest starts to feel unfamiliar. Some of us feel guilty sitting down, guilty saying no, guilty not fixing things. We've lived from granite so long that stillness almost feels unsafe. And maybe that's why some of us stay busy all the time, because movement distracts us from what we actually need. But eventually, the body keeps score. The tension, the burnout, the anxiety, the emotional numbness, the constant overstimulation. Sometimes exhaustion is just not the physical. Sometimes it's the soul asking for gentleness. Grace is the exhale. Grace is the part of us that learns we don't have to earn love through exhaustion. Grace is allowing ourselves to be human. Grace is rest without guilt, softness without shame. Grace is understanding that God never asked us to carry the world alone. And if Granite says keep going, Grace gently asks, but at what cost? Grace reminds us that survival is not the final destination. Because some of us survived, but never learned how to live. We learned achievement, responsibility, performance, but not presence, not peace, not how to receive care without apologizing for it. And maybe that's why so many of us feel exhausted, not because we're weak, but because we've been living almost entirely from granite. Strong on the outside, starving on the inside. I remember a season where I genuinely believed resting meant falling behind. If I slowed down, I felt unproductive. If I wasn't helping someone, I felt selfish. If I wasn't building something, I felt like I was wasting time. And one day, I realized I had built a life where I knew how to achieve, but I didn't fully know how to receive. Receive help, receive love, receive rest, receive care. Even when people offered support, part of me still felt like I should carry it myself. And I think many of us know that feeling, not because we want to suffer, but because somewhere along the way, survival trained us to believe dependence was dangerous. But healing has been teaching me something different. Receiving is not weakness. Sometimes receiving is trust. One of the hardest things God has been teaching me is that strength and surrender are not enemies. Some of us trust ourselves more than we trust rest, more than we trust support, more than we trust God. Because if we stop carrying everything, we're afraid it will fall apart. But healing begins when we realize something. God never asked us to become saviors. He asked us to become surrendered. And surrender feels terrifying when your identity has been built around being needed. But maybe faith looks like this: putting something down, trusting God enough not to pick it back up immediately, and believing that our value still exists when we are resting. I think some of us have confused over-functioning with obedience. We say yes to everything, carrying everything, fix everything, absorb everything, and then wonder why we feel spiritually exhausted. But even Jesus rested. Even Jesus withdrew. Even Jesus stepped away from the crowds. So maybe rest is not weakness. Maybe rest is wisdom. Maybe grace is trusting God enough to stop believing everything depends on us. So maybe the goal is not becoming less strong. Maybe the goal is finally becoming whole. Granite and grace. Strength and softness. Discipline and rest. Resilience and receiving. Not one or the other, both. Because granite without grace becomes survival mode, and grace without granite struggles to endure hard seasons. We need both. And God, in His wisdom, knew we would. Maybe this season of our lives is not about proving how much we can carry. Maybe it's about learning discernment, learning what belongs to us and what never did. Learning that every emergency is not our assignment. Every burden is not our responsibility. Every fire is not ours to put out. And maybe freedom begins the moment we stop measuring our worth by how exhausted we are. Before we close today, I want us to notice something. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice your breathing. Notice how much tension your body may still be holding even while listening to this. And gently ask yourself, why am I still carrying right now? Not next month, not next year, right now. Maybe it's pressure, maybe it's responsibility, maybe it's grief, maybe it's fear, maybe it's exhaustion you haven't fully admitted yet. Now ask yourself something else. Did God actually ask me to carry all of this alone? And if the answer is no, let this be the moment we loosen our grip a little. Not perfectly, not all at once, just honestly. Take a slow breath in and exhale slowly. Again, take a slow breath in and exhale slowly. Inhale, exhale. The world did not collapse because we paused. Maybe healing starts there. Before we leave today, I want us to remember this. You do not have to exhaust yourself to deserve love. You do not have to overfunction to deserve rest. You do not have to save everyone to matter. God has not called us to live as machines. He called us to live as people. People who need rest. People who need grace. People who need Him. So this week, before you immediately carry something, pause and ask, is this granite? Or is this grace asking me to put something down? I'm Asha Doree. This is Granite and Grace. And no matter how strong we've had to become, we are still worthy of being held. We leave lighter than when we arrived. I'll see you next week.